Hi, I'm Angela Nicholson, Future Publishing's Head of Testing, and in this video I'm going to show you some of the features that are available in Adobe's Camera Raw. Camera Raw opens automatically whenever you try to open a compatible RAW file in Photoshop. Camera Raw always opens on the Basics palette, and it's got tools that will help you adjust the exposure, pull back some of the highlights, and brighten shadows. It's also got a few helpful tools up here which can do things like remove this dirty mark. So if I select the spot remover, click there, and there we go, it's repairing that, and we can do the same down here. Just go back to the hand tool and then we can see the other available options. We click between the options using these tabs. There's the tone curve, details, hue, saturation and grayscale, split toning, lens corrections, effects, camera calibration, presets, there are none saved here, and snapshots. Again, we haven't got any saved. So just go back to the basics. One of the great things about editing images in Adobe Camera Raw is that all the adjustments are non-destructive, so you can go back to your starting position at any point and you can keep on tweaking to your heart's content. Now I'm quite happy with this image. I'm just going to boost the contrast a little bit more. And then when you're finished, just click on Open Image to open in Photoshop, or Done to return to Adobe Bridge and work on a new file. It's very easy to create monochrome and split-toned images using Adobe Camera Raw. First, select the Hue, Saturation and Luminance option and check the grayscale box. You can see the image has now gone monochrome. And then we can adjust these sliders to tweak the input or the brightness that each of the colours has. Now there's not a great deal of colour in this image, and I think in fact orange has the strongest effect there. You can see it's darkening and lightening the reflection in that puddle. The next step is to split tone this image, and we do that by clicking on this option here, the split toning. And we can now select the colour that we want using this slider. This will affect the highlights. And then this slider down here will select the colour of the shadows. Now I find it quite helpful to push up the saturation so you can see what colour you're going for, and then choose the tone that you want. Now I'm going to go for a slightly yellowish look to the highlights. There we go. And down on the shadows I'm going to go for a sort of bluish look. And then once you've got the colour that you want, you basically just tweak the saturation until you've got the right balance. You don't usually want a very strong colour, but obviously each to their own. And then we can adjust the balance of the colours between the shadows and highlights using this slider. That's just putting a little bit more yellow into the sky there. If I push it that way, it's giving the image a more blue cast overall. And once you've done that, you can go back to the basics option and you can adjust the exposure and see how the histogram adjusts there as I brighten the image. You can go back to the split toning and do a little bit more work. Just try different colours. I quite like that. And tweak the saturation again. Basically keep going until you're happy, and then you can either open the image in Photoshop or just move on to your next image by pressing Done. As well as allowing you to make global adjustments to the whole image, Adobe Camera Raw allows you to make specific targeted adjustments using the adjustment brush, which is located up here. Just click on that and we can see a brush appear immediately. Once the brush is selected, some options appear on the right hand side that allow you to adjust how it's used. The top ones govern what the actual brush does, while the bottom ones down here adjust its size and the diameter of the feather. So if I reduce the size of the brush, you can see that it's got smaller, but if I increase the size of the feather, you can see that that gap between the solid line and the dashed line becomes bigger. There we go. We'll perhaps increase the size of the brush again, you can see it a bit more. Bring the feather down. There, you can see it's quite a narrow little feather now, but it's not very usable, so let's just go for something like that. That's better. With this image, I want to use the brush to brighten the rider and also to inject a little bit of contrast and some more saturation. So I'm going to go over here and increase the exposure and the brightness a little bit just to see how we get on. Contrast is already boosted, saturation is already boosted, so I'm going to see how we get on. Now, just brush that over and you can see that it's having quite an impact on some of the darker areas. Now if I let go, you'll see that a pin appears. This pin is very useful because it marks where the adjustment has started, and if I hover over it you can see the mask, so you can see which areas have been missed and which have been covered. I'll just go and fill in there. You can also click on it and then hit delete to delete it, which is very useful. Now I can work away on the rider, but I also want to work on the background, and to do that I need to create a new mask, and we do that by clicking new over here. And the background, I think I'm going to darken it a little bit. I'm going to boost the contrast. I'm going to bring up the saturation. So we just start painting in, and you can see it's having a dramatic impact already. I really need a bigger brush for this. So let's do that. And then I can work my way around. Now, if you make a mistake, you can switch to the erase, and you can go back and you can delete what you've done, or you can add to the existing one again. And don't forget that you can adjust the size of the brush as you go, and you can zoom in and out as you need. If you just hold the space bar down, it will give you the hand tool to move around, and you just paint in. Now I might decide that I don't like that, so I could click on there and it will show me the mask, and I can hit delete if I like, and it's just gone. So it's a really quite useful tool that you can spend quite a bit of time getting to grips with, making all sorts of adjustments. And if I click on this adjustment, it shows you the mask. I can try adjusting it after it's been masked off, which is very useful. Again, once you're happy, just open the image in Photoshop or click done to go on to your next image. This landscape image is nicely composed, but it's looking a little bit flat. It lacks contrast and it needs brightening a little bit. We can adjust that quite easily using Adobe Camera Raw. For a start, we can adjust the exposure, so we actually introduce some whites, and we see how the histogram adjusts until we've got some white there. That's too much. And you can see that we're starting to lose the sky, but the land is still looking quite good. It's a typical problem of landscape images, but fortunately Adobe Camera Raw has a graduate filter that we can use to adjust this. If I just click on this, you see we get some new options on the right hand side, and I can specify what I want to do with the filter. So I'm going to use it like a traditional neutral density filter, a graduated one, and I'm going to reduce the exposure, reduce the brightness a little bit. That's it. And it's just click at the top and drag down to the land. You might have spotted it's possible to rotate the filter if you want. I'm going to keep it straight here, and you can drag it up and down to have more, or to cover more of the image. We can also adjust the impact of the filter after it's been applied by adjusting these sliders, which is very useful. Now as you can see, that's having quite an impact on the sky, but we could do with doing something a little bit more with the land. So I'm going to add a new graduated filter, and to do that we just click new here, and now because I want the filter to start at the bottom, I click and drag, make it straight up until the land's covered. Now I want this, it's already done some of what I want it to boost the saturation, which is good. I want a bit more contrast, and I want the land to be a little bit brighter. That's good. Okay, and let's boost the sharpness. Okay, now if I wanted to make the sky darker still, perhaps by increasing the intensity of the graduation or reducing the smoothness, I can pull that down and you can see that it's bringing the dark part of the image further down. Just make it darker so you can see it's more obvious. You can also add a coloured graduated filter just by clicking in this box here and then selecting the colour you want. So if you had an overcast day, you might want to add a bit of blue. Let's go for blue like that, and you can see that's made that sky there a deeper blue. Of course, if you're not happy with your filter, all you have to do is click on it and then hit delete. But I'm quite happy with the way this image is looking now. The final step is to click Open Image so that the image opens up in Photoshop and you can save it as a TIFF or a JPEG or a PSD file. One of the great things about shooting raw images is that you have control over the noise removal. This is a very high sensitivity image, so it's quite noisy, and all I need to do is to click on the Details tab and I get the noise removal options. Now it's always a good idea to zoom into 100% so you can see what you're working on. And you can see there's quite a bit of texture there and a fair amount of colour noise, but it's not too bad actually. It's mainly luminance noise. Now you need to be very careful with adjusting the luminance noise, so it's always sensible to adjust the colour noise first. If I take the slider right down, you can see just how much noise is there. I push it up and it's taking it right out. Now if I push it even further to the top, it's not actually going to do any more. It can't, once the noise is removed, it can't remove any more. So just move the slider backwards and forwards until you consider enough of the noise to be hidden. This slider here controls how much of the colour detail remains, and that means basically the colours that can sometimes be desaturated along the edges of within the image. I'm just going to turn off the highlight warning because it's a little bit distracting. Just click there and then scroll around the image looking for some edges to see whether they are desaturated, and then pushing this up and back. It's having a bit of effect, but it's not dramatic, so I'm just going to leave it sort of in the middle there. I think that's okay. Now we can still see quite a bit of granular noise or luminance noise, and we can adjust that using this slider. Now if I push it right up, you see the blurring effect it has, and it's quite a powerful but also dangerous tool, so we want to bring it back a bit. And we can then use these two other sliders to bring back some of the detail within the image without bringing back the noise. This one works on contrast, but you need to be very careful with the luminance slider, the main one, because if you push it too far you just can't bring back the image and it ends up looking like a watercolour painting with solid edges and just a clean wash inside. So I'm just going to pull back the noise reduction a little bit more, because the other thing you have to remember is you won't look at the image at 100%. You've got to bear that in mind, so it's worth just zooming out a bit, zooming into a sort of size that you might print at, and then go back to 100%. I wouldn't really want to sacrifice much more detail than that, so I'm going to stick with these settings. So then I can open the image or I can click Done.